Hey guys, I've got some more data for you. We just got home about an hour ago. Did a 4-hour trip, 400 and some kilometers in the car. And what I wanted to find out was how much gas does the car use on a longer trip when we don't have a charge? And now I have a little bit of information, so let's go over it. So starting out on this trip, we had my wife, my daughter, myself, and about 200 pounds of gear. And we started with a full charge. So after driving 2 hours and using up the full battery, the car was reading that we were getting 7.1 liters per 100 kilometers, but it was saying that we had gotten 69% of our travel on electric. So how that works is the first 40 some kilometers were done on electric, no gasoline, and then the engine kicked on when it needed to. And I did not use the charge button or anything. We just let the car do its thing for 2 hours. So what it does is it builds up a little bit of power into the batteries, then it uses, and it just keeps constantly cycling. It will not charge the batteries, but it just puts enough in there and then it uses it. And so it says that you're getting, like I say, after 2 hours, 69% of our trip had been covered with electric, either from the charge at home or generated by the engine and put into the rear wheels. So I thought, does it make any sense to try charging the car? Will we get any better efficiency? And actually, I think we do get a little bit better. So for the next 2 hours, what I did was I actually pushed the charge button. And when you're going 100 kilometers an hour on the highway, the car is very efficient. It's probably got excess energy. The engine isn't using all of its power to drive the front wheels, maybe unless you're going up a great big hill. So what I found was that after the next hour, we had driven enough to charge up the battery and use another almost 40 kilometers. So what happens is we went from 7.1, which we were still getting, even charging the battery, we were still getting 7.1 liters of gasoline per 100 kilometers used. But then we got to go that almost 40 kilometers in electric, and that lowered our liters per 100 kilometers down to 6 point whatever. Those numbers totally jive with a couple of other guys I've been talking with online that told me you're going to get 7 liters per 100 kilometers with a few hundred pounds of gear and people in the car. And that's exactly what I got, 7.1. Will it get better as the car breaks in? Maybe. But according to these guys, after thousands of kilometers on their vehicles, that's what you're going to get, and that's what I'm getting. So does this vehicle actually make sense? Not if you're a single person just looking to get into an electric vehicle. It's not the most economical at 7 liters per 100 kilometers, but as a family mover, when you've got 2, 3, 4 people in there and a couple hundred pounds of gear, absolutely it is the only vehicle that makes sense for the hybrid electric side anyway, right as of now, in terms of purchase price and all that other stuff. 7 liters per 100 kilometers is not bad, and you're going to get better than that because probably there will be charging stations in your area, and if you're smart, you will plan your trip to leave on a full charge and, stop and have a picnic somewhere along the way where you can charge the car for an hour and get another 40 free kilometers along the way. So absolutely, with good planning, this car makes perfect sense. More testing is required, but I think that if you're in a very efficient situation like highway driving in a fairly flat highway, doing 100 kilometers an hour, I think it's totally beneficial to push that charge button because the liters per 100 kilometers didn't seem to go up while the car was charging, and yet we were putting extra free energy to be stored in those batteries. One of the screens shows your energy transfer and it says instant energy, and that's when you're not charging the batteries, you have a little bit of energy that's always available if you go to pass. But that stuff is there anyway. They always save 30% of your battery for passing and running those wheels when you need it. So it's a very tricky system to figure out what's going on. But I'll tell you guys right now, if the car is running very efficiently and you have flat area that you're covering and you're doing a high enough RPM with the engine, push the charge button because your liters per kilometer does not go up and you're going to have stored energy when you come to the next small town that you need to be hitting a bunch of stoplights and things like that. You're going to have that energy and you're going to go another, if you charge for an hour, you're going to go another 40 kilometers for free. And that lowered my liters per 100 kilometers. So every chance you can get when the engine isn't climbing big hills and things like that, charge those batteries. I've owned it for 17 days, pretty much 3 weeks now. I've put 940 kilometers on the vehicle, and today I didn't have to get gas, but I wanted to do a calculation. We still were showing a quarter tank of gas, so I want to show you guys my Excel sheet. I've had to make some changes, and I want to talk about the difficulty of tracking the fuel, which we've touched on before, but I'll show you guys what the problem with just trying to guesstimate while the engine's running, the engine's not running. It's a tricky little car. It runs when you don't realize it's running. You don't hear it, and if you turn the heat on, etc., or the defrost, the engine will kick on, and so that's burning fuel all the time. Now, when you are in charge mode and running the engine that you're keeping track of, and I'm keeping track of, say I went 20 kilometers in charge mode, I'm still using the batteries to help with acceleration and boosting, and as we're driving, it's helping out. So how do you calculate that? You can't. So I'm having a really hard time, but I'm going to show you guys my charts, and that in the end, my numbers actually equal bang on what they say you're going to get in the book. Just over 3 liters per 100 kilometers, $2 per 100 kilometers traveled on electric. Let's take a look at my Excel sheet, and I'll show you guys the numbers. Okay guys, here we are in Excel, and we are in the month of April. So I just wanted to quickly show you these numbers. Total kilometers we've traveled using electric, 671.5 kilometers. We've spent $13.50 if we round that up on hydro, and 170 kilowatt hours used. So our average price per 100 kilometers traveled on electricity is going to be $1.98.8. So under $2 to travel 100 kilometers with this vehicle when using electric only, which is fantastic. The average kilowatt hours we've used is 25.98, so 26, which is actually about 33% better than what they tell you you're going to get in the book. You have a 12 kilowatt hour battery, and they're saying that it's going to take 36 kilowatt hours to get to 100 kilometers. That's what they say in the book, but we're doing it in 26. So 30%, somewhere around there, better than what they're saying in the book. But here's why I'm doing this update, because finally, after 17 days, I did put fuel in the car. I'm going to go on a long trip tomorrow. It was showing I had a quarter tank left, so I thought, well, let's fill it up and do some calculations. This 267 kilometers traveled is what I know the car had the engine running. That's when I had the car in charge mode. So I would drive my 30 to 50 kilometers for free. I would push the charge button so that I knew the engine was running, and I would keep track of how many kilometers I traveled. The problem with that is the engine was running a bunch of other times or kicked on here and there when I was in electric mode that I didn't catch or didn't see when you turn the heaters on or the defroster or the fan, or sometimes I did notice a couple times that it would just kick on its own. Probably because the temperatures here were cold. We actually had temperatures between -5 and 4 degrees for most of April, Celsius. We've just started to hit the warmer temperatures, 10 degrees now. It's a strange year. But anyway, 267 kilometers that I know the engine was running. I purchased 31.6 liters of fuel. And so if we do our calculations, there's the price of the fuel was $1.20.9. It cost us $38. And this calculation here, to figure out your liters per 100 kilometers, guys, you take your C3, which is your liters purchased, how many liters you used, and you divide it by the kilometers traveled, and then times it by 100. That's this calculation here. That gives you your liters per 100 kilometers. So if we do this calculation and we look at just the known kilometers traveled, we say, oh, that's pretty crappy. We're getting 11.8 liters per 100 kilometers. But that's not the true story. If we put our total number of kilometers traveled, which is 940, our electric, plus what we know we did on the gas engine, there's our true liters used per 100 kilometers traveled in the vehicle. 3.36. So 3.4 liters. That is pretty much what they tell you you're going to get in the book. I think in the book it says 3.2. Yes, right here. Gas, hybrid, and plug-in altogether, 3.2. And if we're using just gas and hybrid and we're not plugging into anything, they're saying we're going to get 5.94. So we're getting just a touch above what they're saying here, and that could be because it's a new vehicle, right? The engine isn't broken in. The engine only has 200 kilometers on it. So, but anyway, I wanted to show you guys, that's my numbers. total kilometers traveled with the vehicle. That's how much gas I've put into it. And actually, I'll show you guys. So on top of that, if we calculate our gas plus our hydro use, $51.70 is what it's cost me to travel 940 kilometers. 17 days and some bum already pushed a cart or something into my car. Never fails. Look at that. Never fails. And for any of you guys that were paying attention, I did figure out how to get the app, PHEV II app, installed on my phone. Apparently, this was Mitsubishi's error. When I went to them and we tried to set this up originally, they were saying we had to connect the Wi-Fi on the phone to the key fob code that it puts out. If you do that, you will never get the app to work. What you have to do is remain connected with your phone to your internet, go into the app and put in the SSID code that the remote is putting out, and then put in the long upper and lowercase letter code that they give you. Mitsubishi called me back last night actually and said that they had figured out why it wasn't working. So if you're having that same error as me where it will not connect, don't connect your Wi-Fi on your phone to the key fob. Just do it in the app itself and right away it will connect. So now that being said, the app is garbage. Now that I actually have it running, I can't connect to my car from my couch, which is 30 feet away. Wi-Fi signal just doesn't work, or I don't know. You can do everything in the app right on the dash itself in terms of setting timers for air conditioning, heating, etc. So the app, it's really a frustrating, kind of useless app anyway. I don't know, I thought I was missing out on something, but really I wasn't, guys. So if you can't get it working, don't worry about it, because it sucks. One other thing I wanted to mention is that I had set a timer on the dash of the PHEV to only charge the car at 7 o'clock at night, which is the cheap time, and I was going to use my remote, my key fob here. There's a button on the side here which shows the timer and says off. Push it twice. Push it twice within 4 seconds. It's supposed to turn your timer off in the car so that you can plug in and start charging. My charger would not charge when I did that. I tried multiple times, so it's something I'm going to keep an eye on, and maybe I'll go down to Mitsubishi and try their charger and see if it works. Maybe it's just my charging issue, I don't know. But I could not get my car to charge to override the timer when I had a timer set for 7 o'clock. So just something to make note of. I'll also say that I'm not a fan of idling vehicles when you don't need to. Here we are, April 29th, and it was snowing again in Northern Ontario. And my wife went into the mall to return some stuff, and I drove around looking for a spot, and we were out of electric charge then, so the car was running, and I'd pushed the charge button, and in about 8 minutes of sitting there waiting for her and looking for a spot, I had put 4 kilometers back into the batteries. So it's kind of a little bonus there, you know. You need some heat, the car's got to run anyway. While you're idling, just push the charge button and fill those batteries back up. And it seemed to do it very quick when we weren't actually driving any front tires. So all I can say is use that charge button as much as you can.